Welcome to Toffee Blue View, your source for all things Everton. I'm Gerry still. Max and Terry are joining me. You're not surprised to hear that, though. That's just a thing. They're normally here. We kind of got the perma smile on, all three of us. We're even smiling with our eyes. It's a good time right now. It's not like, oh God, our season's made, but no, we played well this weekend, and yeah, things are good. Guys, are we in danger? And I guess I'll let Terry lead with this. Are we in danger of a style developing here? Is this a thing that it seems like it might be happening? Terry, you want to lead with that?
I mean, I hope so. That's something, it cast your mind back to last summer when we got rid of Allardyce and brought Silva in. The very first thing that a lot of supporters said, and even I think Silva alluded to it as well, is that the club needs an identity back, because we'd had so much player recycling over the previous years, which was, somewhat botched in a lot of areas, that we were sort of styleless and shapeless. You couldn't sort of grasp onto what Everton's identity as a team were, and even teams with like much lesser players than us, like the likes of Bournemouth and I'll go so far as to say Watford. They on paper aren't as good. They didn't have as the players of the level that we had, but they had a defined style and a defined sort of signature the way they played, and we were shapeless. We had nothing like that. Whereas against West Ham, I mean, if that's the style we're going to go for, that sort of all action, high press, attack with pace and skillful wingers. I mean, I'm all for that. That is exactly what we wanted this time last year, when we were all probably at one of our lowest ebbs, when we had Sam Allardyce and the football was hard to watch, and there was games and games going by when there was no shots on target. So, you know what I mean? Marco Silva's coming for some criticism this season, and in a lot of cases fairly. Some of the defending was pretty ropey for a few, for a long spell in the middle of the season. But if he was due criticism then, but he's also due credit now, because the defence has shored up a lot in the last 5 games, and you're starting to see the best out of a lot of players. The likes of, Gomes is coming back into form. Idrissa Gueye's been a force for the last few games. Bernard off the mark now in the league, and winning Man of the Match awards. You start to see things come together, and it's important not to get too carried away and only to have your bubble burst down the line when you lose a game again. But it's pretty encouraging. It's nice to look at a win and not just, it was a win because we got a good set piece, something like that. No, we actually took the game to another team, a team who outsiders consider one of our peer clubs, similar sort of bracket to us. Absolutely put them to the sword and say, no, I'm afraid not. We are, we've had a few tough years, but we are still by far and away better than West Ham.
I like your wordplay, Terry. Talking about West Ham and bubble burst. That was just cute. Way to go. You said that, and I was just like, I laughed like Patty and Selma on The Simpsons. That's my buddy did a pun. Good work. Laugh. I just building on that. I specifically was watching our style's second half and watching us pressure those passing lanes. I watched. You can actually actively see our guys look around, see where the opposition is, and press the lanes rather than just straight on pressing. It's knowing the direction to press, from which to press. It's it's impressive, and the lack of space that Gylfi allowed Declan Rice. I mean, Declan Rice. It did make a few good plays, but he was not as big of a factor as I feel like he could have been. I mean, because he's a solid young player. It was great. Max. I hesitate to sit there and accidentally yank a bunch of talking points when you're about to talk about him. So why don't you go into that style question as well next, unless you want to move it on to something else.
No, I agree 100%. I think if that Chelsea win at Goodison a fortnight ago was Silva's biggest win as Everton manager, I think this is certainly his most impressive. I think in that first half, 8 shots, 7 of them on target, and like it was just relentless. It was absolutely fantastic, and I think a big signifier as to how well we played was grabbing that early goal. It done us the world of good, made us play, with confidence, with assertiveness, real conviction in our play. And I said off the record before that I believe that it was our best performance so far this season. As for you see a lot of, for example, journalists flagging up on Twitter. It was down to West Ham and how poor they were. Yeah. To lend that argument a bit of credit, I'd say Zabaleta and Cresswell were caught out a bit too much so far up the pitch. That's where you've got the likes of Bernard and Richarlison and even the fullbacks, Digne and Coleman. I thought Coleman was exceptional, had one of his best games in a while. That's why that was why they were finding so much joy on the inside forward positions. But if you come to think of it as well, this performance comes obviously off the back of the international break. When I think it was come out in the Guardian that we've been named our price for Zuma and Gomes. I think it was 70 million, was it, for the pair of them? And from a subjective point of view, as individual players, they responded to that really well. Gomes absolutely ran the show. I think he had the highest pass completion rate out of the players that started, and just absolutely dominated the midfield. Zuma was confident. Think about it, who's he coming up against? Arnautovic, Snodgrass, Lanzini, and didn't really cause them any problems at all. The back line were really assertive and sure of themselves, and just to make me point, I feel like for our players to make a statement like that, what was it, like our first win in London in 10 as well, because that's something that always kind of gets on my nerve, the fact that we never seem to perform in London, but hopefully that's the monkey off our back too. Another clean sheet is just an endless list of positives. If you were to poke holes, to try and criticise us, I think sometimes between Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Gylfi Sigurdsson, I think Calvert-Lewin was at times a bit too selfish. I think a call back to the example in the first half where he could have cut the ball back to Bernard on the other side, but went for goal. And then you look at Sigurdsson, I think Sigurdsson probably a bit too selfless, where instead of having a crack, he's tried to lay it on for someone else. And I mean, you'd expect your centre forward to make the selfish decision, and you'd expect your key playmaker to make the selfless decision. So I'm not really too concerned with that. Being clinical is really the argument, because as you say, Gerry, I don't think 10. I think it could have been 4 or 5. But by all accounts, that attacking flair was there to see, and it was absolutely fantastic. And another clean sheet too, which is always positive.
Yeah, I think the biggest criticism is us not putting them to the sword, is what I heard most often. The idea that we weren't finishing as many chances, that this should have been 11. These go to 11. These go to 11. Yeah, 11 goals. It could have been a higher number essentially, and it should have been more. We just gotta. I think it's taking this as steps though. We needed a game where we played a thorough game, an entire game against Chelsea.
It was a 90-minute performance, wasn't it? I think that's the main thing.
That's big for us right now. We needed that, and we are going to continue to grow. There's going to be games where we get more than 2 when it should have been more than 2. And I think that's why we're getting Calvert-Lewin shooting so much and being so selfish, because he's dying for a goal, because he's literally doing everything else. He looks good right now.
His running's fantastic, and I think his fitness has developed massively over the last month or so, which full credit for him, and we're reaping the rewards of giving him game time.
Yeah, I'm going to take it back to a couple other things that you were talking about. First, Gomes and Gay. The work that they have done, I think the most applauded player, I think, in the media has been Gomes. By the way, I looked it up. I did a little research. Andre Gomes. Apparently that's the Portuguese pronunciation. Now, if you're Brazilian Portuguese, it's just Gomes. But Gomes. No one's doing it right. I'm just going to keep saying Gomes, though, because I sound super pretentious when I say Gomes. So Andre Gomes and Gay, I feel like the work that both of those two guys did, achieving different ends, not trying to do the same job, which we've had problems with those two positions in the past, doing, different things. Gay with how amazing has his work ethic been since he didn't go to PSG. Him and Gomez, those are the two that I feel like everyone is latching onto. I think if I'm going to point to one partnership that really stood out more than the others, I think it's those two right now. However, Richarlison and Coleman deserves a conversation too after that. Okay?
Yep.
So, you want to comment on, first, I think Terry really wants to talk about Andre Gomez's hair first, I think.
What a head of hair. Just a sensational looking man. What have you said?
There are no arguments from anybody in the world on that. Not even shite supporters can disagree with this.
just pay the money. He's worth every penny.
The West Ham supporters, a lot of them on the Twitters have just flat out said that guy is class. A lot of them just talking about him. That's the most complimented player I saw from that game, and well earned.
You find that a couple of times this season, like the Anfield derby. Like when I went to work after it, like a couple of friends who support Liverpool were just like, Andre Gomes, what a baller! Like he is a top player. So, I mean, Silva's said, hasn't he? Like he's laid the gauntlet down to the club hierarchy to say, sign this player. We need to sign this player. Now, whether that's helpful in the negotiation or not is another conversation. But I hope it happens. I think it will. Fingers crossed. But he's a great player. Like yourself, I saw a lot of the West Ham fan reaction online, and they were all just like, that Andre Gomes, what a player. And
well, respect to them for actually complimenting the opposition and actually, instead of being super bitter and saying, God, we didn't play well that day, they actually complimented a player, which is cool. That's good.
I think in light of that, I think we've got to pay a bit of respect to Fabianski there. Like,
holy hell, he looked good.
That was a sensational goalkeeping performance. For example, that quick double save from Calvert-Lewin and then Sigurdsson straight off the bat, that was a great reaction save, and no wonder he's faced more shots than any other goalkeeper in the Premier this season.
I can't believe I didn't write him down. That was a specific mental note from that game, is he did play well. And I remember, I feel like it was our buddy David ran the numbers on Fabianski as far as the stats go, and he was saying he's a better keeper than people are giving him credit for. So respect to him. That's a good call. But those two guys running things in the middle. Let's talk a little bit about Richarlison and Coleman, all right? Because I feel like Coleman's resurgence has, it's been great. It has been on the back of rest. He has been more rested, which is cool, and I think that's an important part. I got to give Richarlison actually works hard on defense, and I think that's also helping Coleman out a ton. The idea of having more support from the option that's the farther forward option, coming back and giving him some help. He's just a much harder defensive worker than I think. And Bernard on the other side. These Brazilian dudes are working hard on the defensive end, which has been great. The work that they did, though, the combination play, they were constantly looking to combine with each other.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That was great. We're starting to get a right side that's almost as strong as the left, because right now the left looks good.
We're getting there. I think, like, aside from Idrissa Gueye and Andre Gomes, no other player on the pitch completed more tackles than Richarlison, and I think that's just, testament to him. Mm-hmm. And, for example, when you see Theo Walcott play, and you look at the lack of defensive covering, you can see a world of difference when you've got a player on the flank that actually covers and put the shift in. And like you mentioned earlier, Gerry, that pressing game, that high press, cutting out the passing lanes, we forced the mistake for the second goal out of that. Where Fabianski cleared it, came to the feet of Richarlison, he combined with Gomes, then produced a wonderful piece of link-up play with Coleman.
Literally the best pass I've seen Richarlison make all season.
Funnily enough, did you know that was Bernard's first shot on target in the league this season?
There was like a spell earlier in the season where Bernard would keep getting through on goal and really good opportunities, and he'd kick the floor or he'd miss the ball, he'd lose back, or he'd slip, and I was just he gets in all these positions, but then just fluffs it, and yeah, honestly, I'm glad he's got his first goal, because hopefully that will, he'll take off now, because he's even said himself, hasn't he, that goals are a big part of his game and he wants to score more. So it's took him a while to get off the mark in the Premier League, but general play, he's been great all season. The amount of times he's turned like his full-back inside out, and he gave them a terrible time. And you just start to see the best of him now, and I think he's a great little player. I think he's been criminally underrated, not by us, but like by the wider sort of football intelligentsia. It's all about Richarlison, and Bernard sort of slipped under the radar. I think he's a little player.
Yeah, he turned someone completely inside out on that left side and put in a cross. I'm trying to remember. It was, I feel like it was Zabaleta.
Probably would have been Zabaleta.
I think that's who it was, but he completely just, and whoever it was just went the wrong way and just stopped. Didn't come back and try to stop the cross. Just kind of like, shit, It was nice. It was really nice, and I'm starting to. It's great to be able to have some players that want to take players on one-on-one, and are being encouraged to do so, and not just start and then stop, look around, pass back. We've seen that so often over the past. Gosh, I feel like we saw it all the time for near the end of Martinez. It was a lot of that. It was possession preferred over everything else. Yeah,
100%. A huge problem with that is that we've been playing central players out wide, which has probably played its hand to that stunted development of how we attack. And I think fingers crossed that becomes a hallmark of our play now, because he's Bernard to me. I said that when we first signed him, he's almost like Pienaar with pace.
Yeah.
And to see a player like that, it's absolutely fantastic. All the fans love him.
He's sort of faster than I thought. I figured he'd be quick, but I didn't realize he would actually have to be able to sustain it. Quick players, they've got that little, 10-yard burst, but they can't sustain it. But he actually can sustain it a little bit longer than I expected. Just a better outside player than I was expecting. I thought initially when we signed him, I was thinking, okay, I could see him playing on the inside some, because he just is built like that. He built like those type of players. But he's just a fine outside forward. He's been great, and he creates so many chances. He is our creator. I feel like more than Gylfi, he creates chances. So, pretty awesome. So keeping things in perspective, West Ham didn't have their best game, but you know what? They're a Premier League team that actually does have some talented players. So,
and they do considerably well at home.
Yes, they do. In space. So yeah. And one other thing for people listening and watching, if you follow me on Twitter, which you don't, no one follows me on Twitter because I contribute very little. But I was in the middle of watching, and on the feed when we're subbing Calvert-Lewin, they show the away audience, and there's Edward, our buddy Edward, who does our instant match reactions and comes on with us. There he is right in the middle of it. So I paused it, took a little Snapchat for him and sent it to him, and yeah, so Edward, famous in America. He's huge in America, folks. It was just great. I look for our people like every game. You know what I mean? And it's like that's the first time I've actually seen one of our people. I keep expecting on one of the Goodison days to see Max like sitting there, doing rude gestures to the opposition, Not that he would ever do that where anyone could ever see that, but just saying. Cool. All right. Well, good moods abound. We're not getting nuts. However, Everton's in ninth at the moment.
A point within seventh, is it?
Yes. So it's not ridiculous to start having a Europa League conversation at some point. That won't be today, but at some point, maybe later this week. Maybe. Spoiler. All right, so I guess that's it for our West Ham reaction. All smiles. You should be smiling too. Just saying. If you've been digging the videos, please subscribe to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel. We've sincerely appreciated. If you want more Terry, Liverpool Echo fan Gerry, check his Twitter for that. Or you could just go up on the street and say, hey, Terry, when's your Liverpool Echo fan Gerry thing coming out? I want to read it. He won't be weirded out by that at all. He may even hug you. See what I'm doing, Terry? I'm pimping you out for hugs. So yeah, and also keep an eye on Max's Twitter. He'll tell you when he's appearing in various places. He drops his knowledge. But very often he can be found on the Toffee Blues website doing analysis and stories there. So, gentlemen, we're going to move on and talk about, one of the more fun players I've ever seen play. Tim Cahill, just retired. We're going to talk about it. So, anyway, let's go do that then. Bye.